In Hawaii, the former communist Frank Marshall Davis. At Columbia, the Palestinian radical Edward Said, member of the Palestine National Council, described by Commentary magazine as a professor of terror. At Harvard Law School, Brazilian socialist Roberto Mangabeira Unger. By the way, this is a guy who has called for Russia, China, India, and Brazil to, as he puts it, gang up on the United States. He says the premier goal right now is to end American hegemony. In other words, bring America down from being number one. So number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 need to team up to pull down America. This guy, Roberto Unger, left Harvard in the 90s to join the socialist government of Brazil. He was too radical even for them, so they threw him out. Now he's back at Harvard where he seems to fit right in. Then Obama went on to hitch up with a domestic terrorist, Bill Ayers, and then Jeremiah Wright, Mr. Goddamn America himself. So these were his buddies. These were the people who Obama saw as surrogate fathers, people who in a sense could teach him chapter and verse of the anti-colonial ideology. Now, what was this ideology? The key to understanding anti-colonialism is that wealth is seen as the product of theft. The key anti-colonial idea is that how did the rich countries become rich? Why do people live better in Britain and Germany and America than they do in, let's say, Rio de Janeiro or Jakarta or Mumbai? Answer: because the West invaded and occupied and looted all those countries, taking all their stuff. So wealth in this view is not earned. It's not the result of creativity or initiative. It's basically the result of piracy. In 1965, Barack Obama Sr. wrote an article in the East Africa Journal. He was talking about what does a country do when you got all these rich guys at the top. And he mentions a bunch of solutions, but one of them is very high tax rates. And he says, I'm quoting him now, theoretically, there's nothing that can stop the government from taxing 100% of income. 100% tax rates. Now you might say, well, anyone who's familiar with economics would know that this is kind of nuts. Why would anyone propose it? But once you plug in the underlying anti-colonial idea, it actually makes sense. Imagine if you came to my house and stole all my furniture. What's the proper tax rate for you? 100%, because it's not your furniture. If wealth is seen as appropriated, then there's nothing wrong with the government using all its power to take it back. Let's fast forward now to Obama's recent comment to business guys, you didn't build that. It's not you. It's society. Society created the wealth. You, the entrepreneur, you're swooping in and skimming off the top. It doesn't belong to you. And so there's here an authorization for the government to seize, to confiscate. But the government isn't taking from you. You've got to realize the underlying assumption is it wasn't yours to begin with. And so all the conservative arguments about incentives don't really matter. The question, well, how do you deal with thieves? You don't provide them with incentives. You punish them. You take away their ill-gotten gains. The second part of anti-colonialism, quite apart from the idea of theft, is also the idea that America and American power is very bad for the world. In other words, that America is not a force of freedom, but America is actually a force of exploitation. And if you look at the dual movement of Obama's policies, domestic and foreign policy, they're kind of linked. What's he doing? Domestically, he is expanding the power of the state at home. And internationally, he is shrinking or contracting the power of the United States. So it's a scissors motion. He's expanding state power locally, and he is reducing America's power in the world. Why would Obama support oil drilling abroad, but not here? It has nothing to do with environmentalism. I don't believe Obama could care whether the earth is getting hotter or colder. He doesn't know. He doesn't care. What he's attempting is global energy redistribution. He's trying to make sure that the previously colonized countries have more energy so they can grow faster. And he's putting the expense on what he sees to be the colonizer, which is to say, us. Why is Obama promiscuously spending money as if the deficit didn't matter? It's very obvious that if the Republicans didn't have the Congress, he would have spent a lot more. The reason he's doing it, I believe, is because he is using debt as a way to settle America's colonial debt. In other words, the idea here is that America owes the world, big time, trillions of dollars. Now, Obama knows that he can't possibly propose a foreign aid program. Even Democrats wouldn't vote for that much giveaway. But now think about how debt achieves the same result. Because if our children and grandchildren are saddled with trillions of dollars of debt, they're going to have to pay it back. And to whom? Well, a good deal of that debt is owed by the Kuwaitis, is owned by the Saudis, is owned by the Chinese. Debt becomes a form of global redistribution. He's trying to restore the world before colonialism. We lived in the year 1500 and looked around the world. There were several great powers: China, India, the Arab Islamic world, the civilizations of the Americas. It was a multipolar world without a single superpower like America. I believe Obama wants us to go back to that world. So where does this really leave us? I think one of the powerful things about our film 2016 is it shows Obama's agenda in his own words, it links them to his actions, and it shows what the likely next move is going to be in a number of key areas. Ultimately, with Obama, you can't understand where he's going if you don't know his core ideology. Remember, we haven't even seen the real Obama. We'll see the real Obama only in the second term. A first-term president is kind of tethered to public opinion. He has to maintain constituencies. In the second term, in a sense, he can come out of the closet. He can be himself. So I think with Obama, we're facing a very interesting challenge, which is, does America want to go this way? Obama's not a traditional Democrat. I'm sure if you went to Bill Clinton or Kerry or Gore and said, is it a good thing for America to be #1 in the world? They'd say, yeah, of course it is. I think from Obama's point of view, it would be perfectly fine if America were number 18 or number 64 in the world. Just one normal country like Finland or Greece or Somalia at the great dining table of nations. So in my view, that's Obama's goal. It isn't just that he hates America, he's fundamentally looking at America through global eyes. And what he's trying to do is right the ship of the world that he sees as being wrong side up for 500 years, ever since Columbus set out. This age of European superiority and now American superiority, Obama would like to see that end. And can you imagine if one man could do that in 8 years? Sure, at the end of 8 years, America would be a lot poorer, America would be a lot weaker, America would cease to be a special country, the American passport would have no greater worth around the world, America's currency wouldn't be anything special, and probably a lot of Americans would despise Obama. But at that point, I think he wouldn't really care. Why? Because he will have achieved almost single-handedly what no one has been able to do before. No Roman emperor could have single-handedly brought down the Roman Empire. While people talked about ending the British Empire, it took 2 destructive world wars to do that. I think in 2016, as Obama gets ready to clean out his office, whatever his reputation in America, if he can achieve his goals, he will ultimately be vindicated by that still small voice in his own head that says to him, "Well done, thou true and faithful servant." Thank you very much. Thank you. I believe we Do we have a few minutes for questions? I believe we do. Yes. Questions from the audience? And we have, we have roving microphones for them too. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say I've really enjoyed Roots of Obama's Rage. I think it's the best example of figuring out where the man's true, why he does what he does. So I want to thank you for all the work you did on that. My question is, I know your documentary is about 2016, but if there is a God in heaven and we throw this man out of office this year, what do you think he will try to do as an ex-president to further the dreams from his father?
I got a question. The question is, what would Obama look to do in a second term? By the way, my earlier book, The Roots of Obama's Rage, was published in 2010, and it covered about 15 months of the Obama presidency. So it was a book that advanced sort of a bold theory about Obama, but there wasn't enough that Obama did that could prove or disprove the theory. The new book, which is Obama's America, is able to look at the full 4 years of the Obama presidency and also begin to look forward. To answer your question very briefly, I think if we look forward to 2016, if I were Obama, and if I'm trying to achieve a shrinking of, let's say, America's footprint in the world, how would I do it? First of all, I would be focused on the problem of the state of Israel. Why? Because Israel, in my view, in Obama's view, is a little colonial power sitting on Muslim land. And the people fighting Israel, from that point of view, are seen as freedom fighters. By the way, this helps to explain why Obama is wrongly perceived as a secret Muslim. He's actually not. But he seems weirdly sympathetic to Muslim jihadis fighting against America and Israel. That's what causes people to think he is a Muslim. But I think that the reason he supports those guys is he sees those guys as occupied people pushing out the occupiers. So one question for Obama would be, and this would be a very difficult and bold question, how do I remove the state of Israel? Remember, if you're an anti-colonialist, it's not enough to give the West Bank and Gaza. Israel itself is sitting on Muslim land. You have to figure out a way to give all that land back. That's the first challenge for Obama. So in my book, I outline how Obama, I think, can do that. And the second challenge is in the Middle East, there are three important countries. There's Egypt, there's Iran, and there's Saudi Arabia. Since 1979, Egypt has been in the hands of the radical Muslims. No, I'm sorry, Iran has been in the hands of the radical Muslims. But Iran was unsuccessful in exporting its Khomeini revolution. So for 25 years, it was just Iran. Now Egypt is on its way into the radical Islamic orbit. And that leaves, to my mind, one country, Saudi Arabia. So if I were Obama, I would, in the second term, demand that the Saudi royal family put itself on the ballot against the Muslim Brotherhood. I'd say, we in America support democracy. You've got to be Democrats. Put your names on the ballot and let's see who wins. It's kind of obvious who would win that election, by the way. It would be the Muslim Brotherhood. And if that happens, then the radical Muslims control the tripod of three significant countries in the region. We begin to move a little bit closer to a prospect that I call the United States of Islam, which is the unification of the Middle East under a single power and the restoration after 500 years of Islam as a global power. So these are some of the, I think, very important, and notice here, I'm not wildly conjecturing. I'm talking about things that have already happened and what the logical next step would be. Next question.
When will 2016 be available on DVD? Before the election?
Yeah, 2016 and DVD. So the film is currently, well, as of now, it's in 130 theaters. I want to say it's doing really well, by the way. It's in the top 10 films in America. So it's going to ramp up. So 600 theaters next Friday, and we hope to be everywhere by the time of early September, when Americans really begin to focus as a country on politics. So the film will remain in the theaters through September, maybe the first week of October, and we'll have 1 month after that to do DVDs, home box office, various other formats, television, So the DVD will be in the last 4 weeks leading up to the election. Yes.
Wonderful speech, wonderful program. What do you think is in Obama's college records that he's got them sealed, and his work record, and why does he have a selective service card from Connecticut when he never lived in Connecticut? Part two, what do you think his relationship is to the biblical Antichrist?
Obama, there tends to be a lot of emphasis on this, on the sort of birther controversy with Obama, but interestingly, Obama took the SAT to get into college, but his SAT score is unknown. At Columbia, his grades and GPA are unknown. He wrote a thesis. Its contents are unknown. He took the law school admissions test to go into Harvard Law School. His LSAT score, unknown. The New York Times wanted to interview people who knew Obama when he was a student at Columbia. Not even his classmates, people who may have roomed with him, or even janitors who cleaned his apartment. They couldn't find a single person alive who knew Obama. And Obama flatly refused to provide any such information. Obama, recently in David Marinus's book about Obama, he names a girl who dated Obama, claims that she was the girlfriend that Obama refers to in his own book, but their stories don't match. And when Marinus went to Obama, Obama said, no, I actually had lots of girlfriends, which is interesting because none of them have come forward. No journalist has ever interviewed any one of them. And so this is a man with many black holes in his biography. And I think this is the result. When we were doing our film, we'd be in Hawaii, we'd be in Indonesia, we'd talk to people who were related to the Obamas, knew his dad, knew his mom's thesis advisor, knew young Obama. And I'd ask them, well, when were you last interviewed? And they were like, we've never been interviewed. No one's been down here. So incredibly, this guy is, this is the biggest story in America, and it is being truly uncovered, not covered, in the mainstream press. It's a little bit of a scandal, I think, and it's not good for our democratic politics. It's not just the liberal media, by the way. The liberal media was pretty tough on Clinton and on Carter. There's another factor that's going on here that leads people in the press not only to not cover Obama, but when incriminating information surfaces, to try to squelch it and spike it and discredit the people who are bringing it out. And that gives you a little preview of the kind of reaction you can expect as our film goes national. Thank you. Let's go to the next question. Yes, sir.
Each of us knows people that would not come here. Each of us knows people that you could not even have a logical discussion about the contents of this whole seminar, yourself and the other speakers included. Each of us in this room is probably going to go see this movie. I know I am. All right? The people who... Do you think the people who are not here, the people that refuse to talk about it, will go to this movie? And perhaps those guys standing out front.
Yeah, the question is about really kind of how do you get independence, let's say, into the theater? And the answer to this will seem a little paradoxical. Independents, by and large, don't go to see political films, political documentaries, even docudramas, however well made. The way to make the film succeed is actually for conservatives en masse to go to it. Because if the film is a massive success among conservatives, the liberals will start screaming. And when the liberals start screaming, I don't know if you saw, a couple days ago I was on Piers Morgan. And if you looked at him, he had a very constipated look on his face for a whole half hour. But he was sputtering. I mean, his basic question was you can't say that. You can't possibly believe that. So liberal indignation is actually part of, it's written right into our marketing strategy. But the point being, when independents hear that, oh, everyone's talking about this, there's a big hubbub about it, hey, I'm going to be voting in a few months, let me go see the film. That's how you get independents into the theater. So there's actually something that you can do, even if you have like-minded friends. It is important for conservative films generally don't make it into the theater. It's really important that our film do well in order to generate the kind of debate and have the kind of reach that we need to have. Yes?
What really baffles me, as much as we do know about Obama, at least some of us, and based upon your research and some other books that have been published, how are the liberals able to keep all this out of the mainstream press when a conservative mentions anything about his birth certificate or where he attended college, such as Occidental? We have every reason to believe he never did attend Occidental. There must be tremendous money like Soros or somebody like Soros that has been sponsoring Obama like the chosen one to save the world. He's gotten away, I don't want to use the word murder, but he's gotten away with what was impossible a few years ago.
Yeah. I think with Soros and Obama, you're dealing with two meteors that are coming from different places but happen to be firing in the same direction. I don't think Obama's a pawn of Soros, and neither is Soros a pawn of Obama's. Soros represents European anti-Americanism, that European disdain and disgust that this sort of a new barbaric country is at the top of the world. And Soros has that kind of familiar European condescension and I think animus toward America. Obama's animus is coming from different shores. It's third world anti-Americanism that was baked in the anti-colonial atmosphere of the 60s and 70s. There is anti-colonialism in Europe also, but here's the big difference. European anti-colonialism is based on guilt, but third world anti-colonialism is based on rage. And while those two can intersect, they're actually a different emotion. So these are ships that are moving in the same direction, so to speak. So that's the point. I think with Obama, it's not that he's a pawn of someone. The key to Obama's success is he has a secret weapon. And what's his secret weapon? His secret weapon is that he is able to offer white America a certificate of racial absolution.
If Obama is given a second term, what types of changes in his administration or in his cabinet? We know, of course, it's Cass Sunstein is leaving. What types of changes do you see happening that would help him achieve his goals? Godspeed.
Well, I think Obama has had to, in his personnel appointments, be a little bit cautious in the first term. Partly because he was new. He needed to figure out how to operate and maneuver. And so he started with some Clinton people. And he realized pretty soon that the Clinton people were trying to block him. They were trying to block him. Why? Because they're traditional Democrats. So if you look, for example, in Bob Woodward's book, he talks about the fact that again and again on Iraq and Afghanistan. And by the way, the issue in Iraq and Afghanistan is not should America get out. Bush would have pulled us out as well. The intention was always to get out. It's the peculiar way Obama operates. So, for example, what Obama will do is he will say, he will open up secret negotiations with the Taliban. He will say, we are trying to find good Taliban. Interestingly, since 9/11, these good Taliban have yet to surface. But apparently the Obama people are doing business with them. Point being that Obama's approaches again and again are opposed by Hillary Clinton, opposed by the Defense Department, opposed by key people around him. And this is why the whole idea that Obama is a big fat bungler is not true. Obama has actually redefined the citizens' relationship to the government. He has redefined our foreign policy. He shrunk our footprint in the world. He has achieved more in one term than just about any Democrat since FDR, from his point of view. Now, from our point of view, we see him as not doing the things that we want, and we think he's foolish. But he doesn't intend to do those things. So by his own standard, he is succeeding spectacularly, and we can expect him to succeed even more in second term, if he gets one. Yes.
Yeah, I recently been drawn to you lately through What's So Great About Christianity, and I've heard several of your debates with Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins. I definitely don't want to get off topic, but I'm curious, are you going to be continuing with that, or is this kind of just like a transition given our unstable future here, or is this something you'll always continue to do?
Well, the question is a little bit about my sort of second career. I'm the president of a liberal arts college called the King's College. It's a Christian college. And so I sort of have one foot in two worlds. I write about politics, and I've been doing that for 25 years, and I'm a secular writer. But in the last few years, I've been taking on many of the leading new atheists around the country and debating them on campuses. Christopher Hitchens was my most formidable opponent, and obviously we miss him. He died some months ago. So yeah, I'm still doing 3 or 4 of those debates a year. I feel it keeps us thinking about the big questions that remain really important. But my attention now, and certainly over the next several months, is focused very much on Obama. Hey, I realized I didn't address the question about the Antichrist. Somewhat like the mosquito at the nudist colony, I'm not sure where to begin with that one. All right. Go ahead.
Thanks for coming here today to Michigan. There are some people in Michigan who will listen. You made a comment about the possibility in 8 years of a single person destroying America. I agree with you. I think that if Reagan was known as the great communicator, Obama's legacy will be the great destroyer. And life itself testifies to the truth of what you say. It took years to build the towers. It took a couple of hours to knock them down. It's harder to build a business than to destroy it. But at any rate, you made a comment in 2016 when Obama cleans out his desk. My thing is, he so hates our Constitution that what makes you think we'll ever have elections after that, or that he'll do away with term limits? So.
The question is about Obama, and once again, does he hate America? See, I think he subscribes to an ideology that wants a very different America. In the late 19th century, there was a debate in Britain. Britain was then at the peak of its influence between Disraeli, the British then Prime Minister, and his opponent, William Gladstone, about the issue of empire. And Disraeli said to the British, what makes us great is we are a world power. What makes us great is that we have the largest economy in the world. We matter. And this is what defines British greatness. And Gladstone said no. He said, I am for, and this was his phrase, Little England. He says we should give up this empire. We don't need it. We should go back to our small plots of land, grow our petunias, tend to our vegetable gardens, and be content that way. Interestingly, Gladstone could not realize his own vision. Like I said earlier, it took 2 world wars to bring down the British Empire. But across the span of time, I think we get here an insight into Obama. Obama believes in little America. And by that he means a smaller economy, a smaller American role in the world. Obama says this, by the way, indirectly. Many times he says, we have 5% of the world's population, but we use 25% of the world's resources and energy and oil. What's he saying? He's saying we are consuming beyond our share. He would like us to eat 5% of the world's food and wear 5% of the world's clothes and have 5% of the world's wealth. So Obama implicitly has set forward his standard. And his standard is not racial reparations. It's global reparations. So I think that's a realizable goal in 8 years. Remember that America has only been the world's sole superpower for 20 years. America's been a superpower since World War II. So this American era, 1945, could actually come to an end by 2016. And quite honestly, if it does, Obama has nothing left to do. Now, maybe he just wants to enjoy the trappings of power, but he will have actually achieved his goal, if I'm correct, that that is actually his goal. Yes.
I was wondering what your thoughts are about why President Obama authorized the military action that ultimately killed Osama bin Laden. Do you think he did this for political reasons, or do you think there were other considerations at work?
Obama, in his book, The Audacity of Hope, makes a very interesting observation about bin Laden. He says, and I quote him now, like this quote isn't from my book, Obama's America. He says about bin Laden, quote, "He's no Ho Chi Minh." Think about that for a minute. He's no Ho Chi Minh. What's Obama saying? He's talking to liberals. He's saying to liberals, Ho Chi Minh was a good guy. Ho Chi Minh was a true nationalist. He was a true freedom fighter. He was trying to push the French and then the Americans out of Vietnam. He's a good guy. Obama is not a Osama is not a freedom fighter in the same sense. Why? Because he's not defending his own country against American occupation. He's joining with a bunch of gangsters to come and knock down our buildings in a different country. So from Obama's point of view, there's an important distinction. Islamic jihadis fighting in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and you may say in Palestine, they're freedom fighters. They should be given constitutional rights, close down Guantanamo, treat them like US citizens. But bin Laden, al-Zawahiri, the al-Qaeda guys, they're gangsters, international criminals. Send the sheriff to go get them. So there is no inconsistency in what I'm saying. It fully explains why Obama would use force against bin Laden while remaining oddly solicitous toward Muslim jihadis in so-called occupied territories. Yes.
Hi, my name is Daniel, and I'm a returning veteran from my 5th deployment to Afghanistan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My question is regarding the drawdown in Afghanistan and also the total drawdown of forces worldwide, and also the force as a whole, the U.S. military. Do you feel that he wants to dismantle the U.S. military, or is there some other reason behind this?
When the question is about the military and resources to the military, you know, when Obama is asked about the military and military cuts, and there have been some deep cuts, he says we can't afford it.
It's a necessary evil.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. But what I'm trying to say is Obama suggests that, look, we're in a budget crisis. We can't afford military spending. But interestingly, he doesn't feel that way about other domestic spending. He's letting every other division grow. So this gives you a sense of Obama's sort of priorities. Now, the truth of it is if you want to slash nuclear weapons, you can. But you have to increase conventional forces. Because, think about it. China can put 80 to 100 million people on the battlefield. We can't. We rely on technology and superior force to counter that kind of, let's say, a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. Now, we don't need nuclear weapons, but then we need to be able to put a lot of boots on the ground, ships, planes. So conventional forces are costlier than nuclear bombs. And yet what Obama's doing is, again, with blind disregard for all these trade-offs that have been known for decades, he's just slashing both. He's slashing the military, and he's also dramatically drawing down our nuclear forces. So what's going on? I mean, I think Obama's strategy is the opposite of Reagan's, peace through weakness. And to put it even more sharply, historically, if Reagan deserves some credit for the dissolution of the Soviet Empire, it may be that Obama will have to get some historical credit for helping to produce the United States of Islam.
Two quick questions here. I've heard some rumblings that if things aren't looking good for his reelection, he'll impose martial law. Your thoughts on that? And two, God forbid, if he does get reelected, what can we do to stop him from bringing us down?
The first question is about martial law. And look, I think I won't speculate on that sort of thing. I think that we have plenty to go on with what Obama is actually doing. We can assess the things that he's done, and we can infer what the next steps might be. If Obama is reelected, look, I think that those of us who believe in a different dream, I'm an immigrant, right? So I love America, I believe in the American dream. To me, the great paradox is I'm a third world guy who's embraced America. Obama is an American-born guy who's embracing a third world ideology. So we've actually traveled opposite paths. While it is true, as someone said a moment earlier, that it's easier to pull a fence down than to build one up, I do think that there's enormous resilience in the American people. People say, well, the American people were so dumb they voted for Obama in the first place. No. First of all, Obama didn't disclose who he was. A lot of people voted their best ideals with Obama. They basically said that this is a symbol of America getting beyond its racial past. It would be great to have a president who looks like Obama and represents what Obama represents. So Obama knew that, and he was able to use that sort of hidden power. But I think now, 4 years later, and this is part of the message of our film, is, 4 years ago, we didn't know Obama. Now we do. So now the real decision-making power is not in his hands, it's not in my hands. It's in the hands of the American people. Yes.
Hi, I'm Stan Ennis from this area, but I'm an alumnus of the King's College, and I want to thank you for what you've doing for King's College and also what you're doing for this nation. And my question to you is, how can we as parents and grandparents help our families and our friends think right when it comes to our country and what they can do to make sure that we keep our country what our grandparents did. Thank you.
Question is, how do we get people to think hard about these issues and about America? Sometimes at the King's College, I'm talking to these Christian students, and they, in making arguments, they tend to resort and appeal to the Bible. And I say to them, wait, think for a moment. It used to be 50 years ago that America was a sort of a Christian culture. And you could appeal reflexively, or Judeo-Christian if you want, you could appeal to the Ten Commandments, and everyone kind of agreed that that's a good way to live. And everyone kind of agreed that the Bible is an authoritative, if not the Word of God. But I said, but wait a minute. Now we're living largely in secular culture. And that consensus is somewhat dissolved. So if you're going to make arguments about gay marriage or any other subject, it's not going to be enough just to quote from the book of Leviticus or the Gospel of Matthew. You're going to need to have a different language to get through to people who don't share your assumptions. Now, why am I saying this? Exactly the same thing is true with modern American conservatism. Conservatism was once the native language of American politics. But because of some dramatic shifts in our culture, accelerated by Obama, that language is now unfamiliar and strikes people as a certain kind of insider baseball talk. So it's really important, again, if you want to reach across the aisle or reach out to the middle, to find a conservative language that doesn't rely on a certain kind of in-house cliche. You can't say stuff like, Obama's against freedom. Because actually Obama's for a certain type of freedom. He may be against economic freedom, but he's certainly for greater sexual freedom. So in other words, what kind of freedom are we talking about that we want to advance? So again, things that we understand within the room are not necessarily understood in the larger society. One way we help our young people think about these questions is to return to first principles. And a really good place to start is, of course, the American founding. Yes?
That seems to be a nice segue to my question. When I hear Obama, when I hear hardcore Democrats speak, liberals, they have their own sense of righteousness. They have a true sense of justice. It's just very different from ours. And they have a real set of core principles. And our country has come so far, and the church is utterly confused on even biblical values, a biblical worldview, that I find it's actually easier for me to talk to someone in the secular world than a pastor of a church. Can you comment on the role of pastors of the church in America, because when I look at, if we just had unity amongst ourselves, we could take back this country.
I mean, I do think that the pastor, in some ways, today is in a difficult position in secular culture, because pastors study the Bible. They go to divinity school. And yet sitting in their own pews are lots of people who are engineers and scientists and are reading about the Higgs boson and the God particle. And this is not something pastors know anything about. So they're disconnected in some ways from the great explosion of knowledge in the world, in brain science, in astrophysics, but also in economics. So I think that there's an important task to be done in importing that kind of knowledge, either educating the pastors or creating church structures where non-pastors can come in and address the ways in which theological issues relate to economic issues, political issues, scientific issues, and so on. Otherwise, you're basically creating, you could call it, Christians on Sunday and secular people the rest of the week. The broader point I want to make politically in this connection, however, is this. I don't think that this election is about a normal liberal-conservative debate, because Obama is not a traditional liberal. Liberals want to redistribute income in America, and you're a bigger liberal to the degree you want to redistribute more. Obama wants to realign America in the world. That is a different agenda completely. And I think, for me, through the film, through my book, exposing that agenda is the way of challenging Obama in his own constituency. Even African Americans have taken devastating economic losses, but they hang with Obama. Because why? Because they think, well, he's one of us. He's our champion. One of the things you see in the film is we don't argue this point, but as you follow the film, you're in Hawaii, you're in Indonesia, you're in Pakistan, you're in Kenya. You suddenly realize this is not Selma, this is not Montgomery, this is not the segregationist South. This guy has had a very different history. You don't say it, but you show it. And then people go, wow, maybe, liberals are puzzled, like, why doesn't Obama seem to care about the poor? Typical answer, he's too cerebral. He's very professorial. He thinks at such a high level that he doesn't connect with ordinary emotional issues. Dinesh's theory, Obama doesn't seem to care about the poor because he doesn't. His focus is on pulling down the rich. You don't need another theory. So bottom line is that with Obama, you're dealing with a new kind of guy. Now, there's no question in my book, my film, they're going to attack us and say, why are you doing all this? Why are you getting into his past and so on? When I was on C-SPAN a couple of years ago, Jonathan Alter he says, in America, Dinesh, we don't judge people by what their fathers believe. Ronald Reagan's father was an alcoholic, and yet we don't judge Reagan by what his father thought. I said, well, yeah, but Reagan didn't write a book called Dreams from My Father. Obama has made his multiculturalism, his history, his past, his story, the centerpiece of who he is. Never once has he said, I did some crazy things when I was in my 20s and 30s, but I'm way over that now. That was my Ted Kennedy moment, but I've matured. No. To this day, if he's asked questions, he goes, go read my book. I wrote a 400-page book. It's all in there. So Obama claims his past. He claims this multicultural history, and all we're saying is, let's just examine just quite how multicultural it really is, and what these influences really are. And let's just not read his book by saying, here's a funny name multicultural guy, and here's another funny name multicultural guy. Let's realize this guy was a dangerous revolutionary, and this guy used to blow up bridges, and this guy tried to bomb the Pentagon, and this guy has called for the destruction of Israel, so that once you can actually put a story together that in a way hasn't been told. And I think that's why people are responding to our film with such a force of revelation. It's not because we're master sleuths. It's just because the story has, in a way, not been told. And it's a story that very much needs to be told. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
For For more information, visit the author's website, DineshD'Souza.com.